You are live. All right. We are live. Let me see if I see us live on other platforms.
Okay.
Uh, Does anybody is joining us? Oh, yep. It just says we're live. I see us live right now. Cool. It worked. And all right.
Let's go.
So, so welcome to episode 5 of Concept Moon Weekly. We've had a brief hiatus for the last 2 weeks, so we decided to go live for you this week and do a special episode. I am your host, BD, aka Bigger Than Everybody Bobby on IG, BD underscore Diddley on Twitter, and the founder of Concept Moon Studios. I'm joined today with my brother, my man, department. He's the head of Concept Moon's manga and comic department, one of our head writers, comic reviewer extraordinaire. You know what I'm saying? Mr. Rashawn Rogers. What's happening?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, brother. You can catch me on Neuro Not Zero anywhere on any platform except for Facebook, and also Lawful Evil Comics, where I do a little something over there too on
Yes.
other platforms. So
My man is dope too. So if you've seen any in the last 2 or 3 years, if you've seen any comic book reviews on conceptmoon.com, 90% of the time they're probably from Rashawn. A lot of people, I know a lot of people were asking me about them. I'm like, I don't write the reviews. That's all my man. So now granted, I save a lot of y'all.
yeah, listen, fam. I want better for my folks.
We want it.
So I'm a little hard because I believe in us, especially with creators of color. I believe in us. I think we can aspire to much higher heights, and
Absolutely.
they ain't trying to let us in sometimes anyway. So we got to be 10 times as good. So I really want us to just be that 10 times as good.
Yeah. So I'm trying to share this on Facebook while you talking.
No problem.
But yeah, just trying to get people in there. But yeah, so today, what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about anime and manga representation. Right?
Yeah, it's a tough topic. It's a good topic.
So let's just dive right into it. I'm gonna just ask you the main question, and you can kind of go from there. Do anime and manga studios, which are historically Japanese, you have some Korean studios, you have some Chinese studios, you even have some American studios, obviously, but traditionally Japanese, Asian, do they owe Black American viewers and fans representation? Yes or no?
No, I mean I feel like that's the anime and manga was created for them. They created a representation to tell stories initially about, you could look at their history about how the effects of Americanization, the atomic bomb and things, Fist of the North Star, all of those, the Mighty Atom affected them. So that was their vehicle to get their story out. Just like in some ways, hip hop was our vehicle to get our story out, right?
Still is.
Listen, still is. Despite anybody who wants to say who or what. But
what my man say, to this day.
To this day, right? To this day, what Lord Jamar said, they guests in this house. This is our house. They guests in this house.
Yeah.
But in that same token, we are guests in their house. We didn't create manga. We didn't create anime. We just enjoy it, and that's fine too. But I think that if we go into the idea, into a space where we didn't create and expect somebody to cater to us in any way, in that manner, we kind of lost the plot, because that's for them. They made that. We should be focusing on, if we want to tell our stories, who's going to tell our stories like us? Nobody. From the blues musicians to the rappers, who's going to tell our story like us?
And we've been telling our stories in every medium that we can get ourselves in.
Right.
So why would we expect anyone to come in and tell our story? So I'll say, for my answer, I agree with you. No, they don't owe us any representation. However, caveat. What they do owe us is proper representation when they choose to represent us.
I will agree with that.
So it's like, we've seen so many characters that are caricatures of Black Americans and our Black American experience. Those characters are made based on stereotypes, made on negative stereotypes, let's be specific, a lot of them. And so my thing is, no, they don't owe us any representation. But what you do owe us is taking the time to represent us properly. And if you can't do that, I'd rather you just not have it. Because
not have us.
Look, Goku not being black, they never stopped me from enjoying Dragon Ball. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I don't need you to pigeonhole a black character in there just to have it. Because they did actually go back in. If you've been reading the Dragon Ball Super manga, they did introduce two teen characters that were black. Well, I think it was one black young lady and one black.
Yes, yeah. I did see they're in Goten and Trunks' class. I think yes, I did see them. Yes.
And they drew them the right way. They represented them the right way. So and then we were talking obviously before we jumped on here about Mr. Popo and how he's not actually black.
Not black, right?
And people take his presence in the Dragon Ball universe as like, this is how they envision black people. Now, there's only been, but there was one other black character I can remember in the Red Ribbon Army or way back in Dragon Ball. Yeah. He had the big pink lips and the bald head. You know what I mean? But it's like, so that kind of representation. No, don't bring that. That's not what we want.
Yeah, that's not.
I like that. So I'll say, no. They don't owe us any representation, but if you're gonna have us in there, do it properly.
And I point to, in relation to that, I point to a character like Muhammad Abdul from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Season 3 Stardust Crusaders. He's a black man. He's from the middle. He's from Egypt. He has dreads, but he's the voice of reason. He's intelligent. He's not like some sort of stereotype from any place. He's not like the killer bees of the world. I know people, Naruto fans, gonna get up in arms. Yo, he was a stereotype. Let's get it straight.
I both loved and hated Killer Bee. Like, what I'm saying?
I love the idea of Killer Bee's village and that whole joint, but like the fact is I'm rapping, I'm rhyming. It's like, yo, bro, like stop. We don't speak in rhyme. Like we don't That's not.
That's like when Zach used to fight on Power Rangers. He used to be dancing.
And he used to dance. Yo, I was like, why is this happening? Why is right? That's the thing. It's like why do we have to be? It's like you said, if you don't know anything about black people and you're gonna put a black person in a manga or anime, either do your due diligence or just take them out. Like I would rather not see myself as a caricature than to see myself as a caricature. I'd rather not see myself at all. So
then the follow-up question to that is, since we do kind of agree that they don't technically owe us any representation. Do we feel like anime actually needs diversification?
I would say yes, but it has to come from us.
Right.
I
think
need
to open more doors and let.
Right. I think that, and at the same time, I'm not sure the process of getting your anime put together. I'm not sure if you want to have Kodansha do it or Shonen or what have you. But if there's going to be a level of diversification, then it's going to have to come from us for two reasons. One, a lot of the stuff coming out is isekai power fantasies.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is people. I just read look at some title, and it was like something about, it was basically like an incel power fantasy. It was like some straight, like, if this guy didn't have a Japanese name, he'd just be, like a white boy or something who wanted to escape everybody else and be in fantasy land. And I think, in my opinion, I think that's going to have to come from us, because at some point, just like American comics, we have a flood of isekai. We have a flood of this escapism fantasy for groups of people who will spend money on this escapism fantasy in America.
So do you think it's enough to have a black writer or black creator? Do you think the whole team needs to be black to truly represent it properly? Or do you think it needs, like, what do you think the best, how do you best diversify?
I think that in the case of, again, and I can't speak for other groups of people because I'm black, I'm not going to speak about what they need to do. So I want to get that out of the way, because I know the trolls are going to be like, oh, well, what about Hispanic people and blah blah. It's like, nah, I'm not talking about that, because I can't tell you what you should have representation for, but I can say what I wanted. And I think that having a black writer or a black illustrator or animator in the room, if they're going to do that, to do a story, especially if the main character is black, I need to have somebody who's in that room who knows, hey, I know you may not be doing this out of malicious intent, but
that
we don't need this. We don't need that. We don't need. We could replace it with this.
Right. You know? So that always takes me back to, as you know, I was in the military way back.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was living over in England at the time. And my son was probably like 3 years old. Right. And so I take him to the nanny, and I go drop him off in the morning, and I come back and pick him up. And then the afternoon, she's telling me, "Oh, he was being a little cheeky monkey today." And I was like, he was what? She's like, he was a cheeky monkey, and I was like, oh. But then I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Because they say that over there, thinking that means to them that don't mean nothing.
Yeah, that's something else.
Yeah, I'm like, listen, look, I'm from the U.S. I appreciate you taking the time to explain what you meant, but that ain't you don't call little black boys
black kids monkeys. We had a whole problem with that with Gap. Remember that we had that whole Gap problem. Remember they had that Gap with the kid with the coolest. Can't do that. But again, that's another thing, and I think we need to understand when things like that happen, when we have to put in taking it back to the manga or taking it back to cultural differences from different countries. When somebody says, hey, don't put that in there because it's offensive, nobody's saying you're meaning to be offensive. Nobody's saying you did this on purpose. Nobody's saying you're a bad person. We're saying you didn't know. And that's cool because there's things we don't know. There's things we go over to Japan that we do that we may not know about anywhere. Yeah. It's just cultural differences and being like, oh, okay, my fault. I didn't mean it. Okay, I know you didn't. I appreciate it. It's just over there. It wouldn't be well received over there.
We live in an interesting time where people don't have the opportunity to make mistakes.
Right.
And
that's
so
very true.
When you deal with these people, you got to make sure you educate them properly. You can't just be like, oh no, you can't do that. That's offensive. Because if you don't take the time to educate them as to why and the history behind something, how can you expect them to understand why they should stop? So I always try to tell that. I always love that story because it's just a very subtle thing about why they mean it one way, you mean it that way. They don't even know. So I think going back to our point, it's like you need to have Black people at the table. They need to have a voice. They need to, and you need to give them the space to operate the way they're supposed to. Because what's the point? There's no purpose of having them there if when they tell you, hey, this isn't going to come across the way you want, you don't listen to them.
Right.
So it doesn't no good.
Right. I think that was another issue. I don't know if you remember the game Forspoken.
Yeah.
Square's game Forspoken. Apparently they had
Black. And that was like no, hold up. No, I'm thinking about a different game, Heavenly something. But yeah, Forspoken just came out.
It was a couple of earlier this year. Black main, female lead. And they had Black women in. Apparently they asked Black, I think, anime nerd girls or something. Like I forget. My apologies if I forget the name of the conglomerate, but it was a group of Black women who were into manga and anime and Japanese culture. And apparently they had them in the room there. And again, there were things that people were saying like, well, why is her hair this a post-apocalyptic world? How is her hair so straight? She's Black. How's her hair so like? How does all of this? There were certain things that were just like, it's like, oh, like
that would naturally happen.
Right. It didn't make any sense. And I'm not sure if they listened to these young women or they just said, hey, we're going to split the difference and do whatever, or I'm not sure how it happened. So I can't say, but you may have instances like that where you're telling somebody, hey, this isn't the way this actually works. And the person's like, whatever.
Okay. And man, sidebar. Can we tell all the video game creation people that Black people rock more than just 3-4 hairstyles, man?
I think a lot of so that's true, but the thing is, you think any of those people know any Black people? Like let's keep it a bone. Let's keep it a bone. You say hi to them at a party, they walking across the street. These are the guys who, Peter Parker from the 40s was their idol. They were stuffed in the lockers and all of that. So they have no interest in. But that's another story. But yes, that's
a whole other sidebar for real. We need to make a list about that top 5 video game character creations for Black characters.
Yeah.
If there's
not a lot.
if
Well,
there's even five.
I mean, I read, I was going through an article about that, specifically looking for like black games with black main characters, and the number one character was CJ from San Andreas, and I was like, yo, like what?
I mean, the one that jumps in my mind immediately is the main character from Prototype 2, I think it is. He was
Oh
a
yeah,
black
James
guy.
Heller, James Heller, yeah,
Yep.
James Heller.
And I'm like, that was
Yeah,
dope. But then it's like,
yeah,
then you got cats like, well, he wasn't a main character. He was one of, but he wasn't the main character. Buddy from Gears of War.
Right. I know you're talking about. I forget his name, but I know you're talking about.
Ex-football player, that whole dude. Yeah. So it was like he was one of my favorite characters. That was like, because he wasn't too over the top. He reminded me.
But the question is like, is that also a stereotype? Because Barrett, right? Final Fantasy VII, like he's like, what's going on there, bro? Like he's just, big, it's like, yo, and stuff. You know what I noticed? I noticed that stuff more from Japan than I do in America. Absolutely. America seems to be like, because there's so many people, it's like, one, we don't want to get in trouble, and two, like, okay, we may know somebody like that, so we know somebody who's this. But in Japan, it's like, I see this on TV, so that's what I'm gonna do, and it's like, all right, but that's not like real.
That's the first thing I noticed when I started traveling around. Is like they really like, because America is so just like, I would say naturally, but we just diverse. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like when you go to these other countries, that's what they are. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's who they are. So like whether whatever, black, white, whatever, you're that country thing, the nationality. And so they have a whole different way of functioning, the way they like to do stuff. So to try to come and enforce like American like stereotypes and standards on everything is crazy. We can't do that. I don't know. I feel like I got lost somewhere in there, but
no. I get what you're saying. It's a balancing act, because you don't want to be, like, this is what you have to do this. But like we said before, going back, if you're going to do this, do it correctly, because everybody would want some that done right by them.
Correct.
I don't, because back in the day, they had a lot of Japanese stereotypes in World War II films and things like that. Like we don't. Even in comics, not Japanese, but Chinese, Shang-Chi's father was Fu Manchu. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like we've grown from that. And we need to be cognizant, these are actual people. And this is not, we're not just like some yellow terror or some black men, like it's not that. It's a person. This is a character, this is a person, and there are people like, the people who come from this group identify with this. They don't want to be like, oh, well, I'm just a stereotype or something.
I just know, like, as a writer, when I go to do any kind of like writing for a different culture, or, a different subculture or anything like that, I'm doing like hours and hours or days and weeks of research before I write like two sentences. You know what I mean? I remember I'm writing, even working on instruments, and one of the instruments of Jahan cultures is kind of based on Roman and Spartan. Just kind of that culture. And so I was researching for like 2 weeks trying to figure out how Roman soldiers took care of their feet when they were marching from place to place. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, you mean to tell me with all this technology and all this ability, you can't take the time to research actual Black Americans?
But you're a good writer, though. Robert McKee, in his book Story, said that Ridley Scott knew his alien creatures so well that he knew what their blood did. Like he knew that it was corrosive. You got to know your character that deep. So if you're not, it's the Neil Gaiman method. Neil Gaiman, when he wrote Anansi Boys, he tapped Nalo Hopkins, he tapped a bunch of people like, yo, I'm not from the Caribbean, I'm a British dude, but this is Caribbean folklore and this is important. I need you to tell me if I'm doing it right. I feel like some people just don't, they're like, nobody will notice. And that's kind of like a hack writer thing. Like, I just want to say something and I just want to tell my story. And I'm lazy. I don't care. I remember a writer for, I don't want to call out any names, but a writer from Batman wrote the Batwing, Batman of Africa. And he did no research. The characters existence took place in the Congo, and he did no research on the Congo. He was like, oh, all cities are the same. It's like, that's not true. Like, that's not half true. Like, you can't.
That's not true in America. That's definitely
exactly
anywhere else.
Like he was like, oh, all cities are the same, and the series ended up, not doing. It didn't do so well, and it's like, yeah, because you didn't make this. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like,
was that the Batwing in the Rebirth era or the new 52 run?
It was New 52. It was pre Luke Fox. This was the African brother. Judd Wynn.
That was the one that had like the gold mask, no?
Yes, he had like the side mask with the thing and all that. Yeah, that was that Batwing, and he. I mean, the story wasn't like, the character was David Adewale. The character wasn't bad, but it just seemed like I would have liked to know, the same way we know Gotham City has all of these things. I would have liked to know what his city had. It just felt like it was like, just like, oh, it's a backdrop. I can just tell a story about blah 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 blah. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's.
But I mean, the way the way a city runs, the way a city functions, that's going to dictate how the characters function in that space. Yeah. So it's like, so even with us, when we're writing for After Image and we're writing for, Free World Rick, we're writing for Tactics and things like that, right? When we start building out the structure of how Fort City works, and we talk about the boroughs, and we talk about how those cities interact with each other. How does this area interact with that area? Is there any like standing feuds? Is there like, you have to take the time to do your true due diligence when you're doing this. But yeah, going back to the main subject though, anime and manga representation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Here's I feel like this is a controversial question. Do you feel that Black anime and comic fans, even you can even add American comic fans in there, would prefer to be represented by or represented by Black creators, Black writers? And which one do you feel like they go harder for?
Oh man, they're gonna have me be calling me all types of animals and all of that, all types of animals with the mask on and all. They're gonna be calling me all types of, but I gotta tell it like it is. To preface, Brandon Easton wrote a article on his blog, his old blog, Fool's Crusade, and it was called Black Nerd Stockholm Syndrome. And it was basically about how Black nerds could name every designer from Halo, all of these other things, but they couldn't tell you any Black game developers, game designers, anything like that.
Right.
I think that a lot of Black nerds say they want things created by Black creators that they like.
Right.
And I think they say that, but I think they want those things to be Black creators who work for Marvel or who work for DC or who work for Shonen Jump or who work for Kodansha. I think they want those people to be, okay, we hired a guy from here to do this.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, it's not his character. We just allowing him to do it or whatever the case is, or a woman to do it. We're allowing her to write her character, a character here for us, but she doesn't own it. She can't, if we want to make them like the whole Monica Rambeau joint where she went from straight hair to having an afro or whatever, and it was all kind of messed up. It was like, we don't have control over those things.
Right.
And I say that because really, every time I post on Reddit or things like that, I've been in different groups and people will make excuses. Oh, well, the reason that we don't buy things created by Black creators is because the quality is not good. I'm like, what have you looked for?
Right.
What have you looked for? Because I could name high quality, not just Concept Moon. We have great quality stuff.
Absolutely.
But there's other people who are our contemporaries and even came before us who have quality stuff. And I say that to say, because once you say, well, I read this and it was trash, so I'm gonna throw out the whole thing. So they're not gonna give us a chance because they wanna they like the pigeon. You know, they say they want to pigeonhole. Yeah. You know,
I feel like more than any other culture, each individual Black creator represents the whole of Black creators. Like and it's an insurmountable amount of pressure. So like if like
Right.
so think about, okay, for example, we have a tendency to ride for whatever person does whatever thing on whatever major platform that we rock with, right? So I would say I don't know if I think you hit it on the head when you say we want these guys to create these things, but we want to make them on those platforms. Case in point, LaShawn Thomas, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Cannon. Let's talk about Cannon Busters. Let's talk about Yasuke. And it's like, let's be real.
Can I preface real quick? A brother I wanted to succeed. You know, you want to root for people. You want to root for people.
But it's like when you give me a subpar product and I have to now, I can't say anything bad about you because if I trash your anime and your anime was trash, Cannon Busters was garbage. I'm just gonna go ahead and say Cannon Busters were garbage. And it's like, but because it's him and because he's on that platform and because he's kind of like a unicorn, we can't be honest about it because we want if we trash this one, it would never be another. And I feel like a lot of Black creators live with that on their shoulders when it comes to that. It's like if I do this poorly, then there will be
everybody else.
And it's like that's not fair.
It's not.
As a culture, we deserve the right to have some terrible products,
right? But this gets into a conversation I think later we can have. To quote the late great Amos Wilson, until you have power, you don't have the ability to be seen as an individual. So we don't. And I want to talk about power in the and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm talking about power even in the way that we control our own image.
Yeah.
Even in that, like, there's a lot of power behind that. And like you said, if one of us fails, people gonna be like, oh, well, see, we let you get one and you failed. So
the inverse of that, something like Black Panther comes out, everybody goes and supports it like crazy. But then some other Black created IP comes out and it doesn't get any fanfare, doesn't get any news, doesn't get any headlines. And it's like something.
You said Black created IP. What's Black Panther? Black Panther was directed and everything. It's not.
Listen, we're gonna hurt some people's feelings. Black Panther is not a Black comic.
Sorry.
Hate to tell you, like it's not. It was created by white people, written by white people for the most part, owned by a white-owned company. It is not a Black comic. I'm not even mad. I mean, so it's like, what are we supposed to do? We build up. You got people doing dope work. You got people like Advent. You got people like Winglish. You got people like, you know what I'm saying? Obviously ourselves, Concept Moon. You know
Concept
what I mean?
Moon, of course.
Evil, you know what I mean? But it's like, if what we're doing and how we're bringing it to the table, and I got it. Even if I'm not a huge fan, but I have to give them some respect, and I put some respect in their name. Black Sands, they did a great job. They came out, they made he did a great job marketing his company, building a buzz for his company. Now, other side of it too, because we don't want to hurt a Black-owned company. A lot of times we just won't say something is low quality, right? And listen, as a consumer, as a fan, as a writer, there are a lot of projects that come out, especially from indie creators, that are not good. You know what I'm saying? However, that ain't gonna stop me from supporting somebody because everybody else has the runway to make a bad product.
To make a bad product. Yeah.
So we have to give them some time to get better. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you ain't gonna be great. Your first project ain't gonna be great. Your second project probably ain't gonna be great. Maybe your fifth, sixth, seventh project, great. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't know what you're doing. You haven't been there. You haven't crossed those fields, those words, and been through those trials. So how can you expect people to make great product but here's the other side of that too. We can't, if we're not honest and say, hey, because a lot of times with Black creators that I've seen is that they don't want you to really critique their work. They don't want you to really say,
listen,
this is bad and here's why.
You mentioned Black Sands, and I've seen arguments between him and other people based on people who were purchasing his stuff saying, hey, what's this? And, people it's like, yo, listen, you should take that as a lesson.
Hey, man, he struck at the exact right time with the exact right attitude and the exact right imagery that he needed to have for his product to be successful. And he was smart and he did what he needed to do. Do I feel like the project lacks a little bit of substance? Yes, I do. I can say that without without disrespecting the project. I feel like it doesn't have a lot of substance. I feel like, but I feel like there's a lot of projects that come out and they don't really have strong stories. Maybe the art looks good and the story's terrible, or the story's good and the artwork's terrible. Which one would you prefer? I don't know. But as a reader, I'll probably say I take the bad artwork with the strong story.
Good story, right.
Because artwork can always improve. You know what I mean? But a bad story is a bad story. It ain't gonna get no better. You know what I'm saying? So, well, I'm not saying that in Black Sands.
I'm not saying that about him either. And I'll say this: a bad story can get better. I'll explain. It can't get better in the way that we, like you were talking about. It's the same thing. It's a lot of ego. It's a lot of same thing that people don't want to be critiqued. They just want, oh, I did this. You like it. You should like it. It's like, it's like if you can take a criticism, say like, okay, well, I'm not being mean. I'm just saying like, well, what about this? Let me ask you, what about this? And it's like, oh, well, I don't know. Okay, well, build on that. Do something with that, right? I did a review for a comic. I used to do comic reviews way before, back when I was living in Florida. And obviously I still do it. And I've toned down my review style. My review style used to be much more terse. I was much more like, I literally had people tell you like, yo, bro, are you trying to discourage people? I'm like, nah, but like, I'm telling the truth. I reviewed a comic series that a writer did. I'm not going to mention any names, but he's a decent brother. And then I gave it a bad review. And I told him, I said, man, I hate to do this, but I gave him a bad review and I apologize. And then I wrote an article, an essay called Writer Up. It was a long time ago. And it was basically about how we have to do better, and myself included, because my mentor told me that I needed to improve. And I was like, we all need to improve. Like, we can all always do better. And the brother who read my review thanked me, read the article, and then went back and redid his comic.
Yeah.
And made it make more sense. And I read it and I was like, oh, this is good. Like, this is better.
People, I get people submitting me scripts all the time. And I'm like, because obviously that's what we do. Part of what we do is project management for other people, right? I get scripts submitted to me all the time. So I'm reading these scripts, or I'll send them to you and you'll read them, or we'll talk about it. And these guys, you would tell them, hey man, I think there's a lot of good substance here, but the story is just not landing. Or it's not, or the plane's not even getting in the air. I don't understand what's happening. The way that you structure the world, it doesn't make sense for this character to function this way, and they get upset with you. It's like, well, what did you want me to come? What did you want me to do? I'm an editor. Like that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you how to develop your story, and they don't want that. People don't want to improve. They just want you to love it, and it's like, no, you got to earn it. And so I will say this, going back to the topic of like Black fandom. I feel like Black fans will ride for a quality product, like all the way ride for it. Hell, we ride for poor products all the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but when you get one that's really well done, we're going to ride for it. I just don't think that there is a big enough focus on looking for the quality IP. Like, it's just like people that say they don't like rap music. And it's like, okay, you don't like rap music. Why don't you like rap music? Oh, because it's so vulgar and it's so this and so that. Okay, well, if you look at this artist, that's
which people forget that rap like everything else has subgenres.
Exactly.
So like it's like it's like one day I can listen to Sean Price, the next day I can listen to Mos Def or Andre 3000 or something. Like
shout out to Blue Moon Sun, man. That's a great.
Is that good? Is it good?
Yeah, man, it's like good meditation music.
Is he borrowing on it? Is he borrowing on it? He's not really borrowing on it.
No, ain't no bars on it.
Oh man, see this? I wanted him to be borrowing on it. I was waiting. We was waiting for you, like, 3 Stacks. We was waiting. You was supposed to save hip hop, bro.
In his defense, it's not a hip hop album. It's it's an instrumental album. It's just
okay. Meditation. He's expanded. I can deal with that. Yeah. But all I'm saying is, I'm tired of brothers being like Jay Electronica, being like all of this. We heard you and you were supposed to save hip hop, and then you came in. You were supposed to save us, bro. And then people just disappear. Like can
we talk about like the first time you heard Exhibit C?
Bro, listen. I was like, this is what's coming out now, huh? This is what we got. This is what we looking forward to. And then he just like, it was like, yo, people was like, yo, Jay, yo, the first time I heard Eternal Sunshine, yo, Jay he's about to save hip hop, bro. He's about to save hip hop. And he just vanished. It was like, yo, he just didn't. And it was like, you know.
And then when he did put that album out, it was really, he did the Raekwon Ghostface thing too on us. it's really him featuring Jay-Z the whole album,
right.
And it's like, okay, it's a decent album. It's just not the album we
want. Yeah, this is not what you promised us, basically.
Right. And it's like, man, I've been following him forever. So it's like going back. I think Black fans deserve quality IP, but I think there's also quality IP already out there. We can name a ton of, Greg, Robert Jeffrey. All of these
Tony Kitrell,
you know what I mean? Like all of these dope Black writers that are out here putting out quality products.
Jeffrey Thorne,
like come on, it's too many. Brian Lambert, you know what I mean? It's too many good quality writers to say that there's just none out here. People aren't looking for it. So then it goes back to, okay, well, what's the marketing machine looks like?
Right.
Or these, like, even for us, we've been trying to bust through the algorithm and just get our, because I'm like, I'll be the first one to tell you, our first couple books weren't the greatest books. Like, but how many creators do you know that can say that on a platform like this in the open and own it? Like, hey man, I didn't know what I was doing the first couple times I put out a book.
To me, that's better than having what I call William Gibson syndrome. William Gibson is one of my favorite writers. He wrote Neuromancer. That was his first book, and that was his best book. And after that, everybody was like, yo, is it going to be as good as Neuromancer? And he never got it back. So I would rather move up. Like, okay, we didn't do well. We could moving up. Then like, all right, we started up here, and it's like you can either go down or you can stay on the same level, but you ain't gonna be better.
So here's the question: would you want to be somebody like Jadakiss, have a Jadakiss type career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or would you want to have like a more like a Nelly type of career where you have like a short run and it's like the hottest out, but your run is short, relatively short, or you want to have like a consistent, I'm always in the conversation type of career?
To me, I would prefer in at least as a writer and a creator, especially with Concept Moon and everything. Yeah. I would rather have a Jadakiss kind of career, only because I say this: Jada could always come out with that one album that's like, oh, he's got the summer, or he's got the whole thing. Yeah. Boom, that's it. Nelly can't do that anymore. Nelly's window to do that is over.
That's like. Ooh, it's like with Diddy, he can't make a hit. His last album flopped, and it's like his last album flopped plus all these bad allegations.
Man.
It's like you don't want to hear none of that. You know what I'm saying? Like even with cats like 50 had a tidal wave of a run.
Yeah.
But now, don't nobody want to hear that kind of music no more. So he's like a dinosaur now. You can't do that. So it's like, I don't know, like Kanye. Before all of the
craziness,
you know what I'm saying? Like great career, great album, great discography. You know what I'm saying? So I would definitely, as a writer, as a creator, if I'm trying to be sustainable within this space, I definitely want that Jadakiss type career. I would love, because the thing I love about Jadakiss, he's always in the conversation. Top 5, top 10. If somebody says Jadakiss is in that group, you're not going to be like, nah.
You wilding. Yeah, you wilding.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You will just be like, well, okay, but I might put this person or that person over.
And also, here's another thing. With the way Jadakiss came out as an artist, he came out with the locks. He kind of came out on a high because of Bad Boy as a Machine, right?
Right.
They kind of started out as a high.
You talking about the Warlocks or the Locks?
I'm talking about the Locks, not the Warlocks, because that's Mary. That's when Mary discovered them. I'm not talking about the Warlocks. I'm talking about We Are the Streets, Money, Power, Respect. I'm talking about when they were Shiny Suit era. That wasn't really suited for them, but because they had, and it's just like when we talk about what's the marketing machine to find you out. They had a marketing machine behind them that was up here. Whether or not that suited them, it was different. But I feel like a person like.
He said, I'm like the Bad Boy Street team. I couldn't work the locks.
Right. I couldn't work. Exactly. But dudes like that, Nas started out. I wouldn't say he started out somewhere where he had the high, and then he disappeared for a little bit, and then now look at him now, legendary run.
We getting away from the main topic, but Nas, Nas dropped the Illmatic, which is probably to me still hands down probably the greatest rap album, just because
it is hip hop itself. Yes.
Yeah, like you got to think there was Rakim doing what he did, then Nas came and evolved and pushed it forward with Illmatic. Everything from Illmatic after that is a child of Illmatic. Right. You know what I'm saying? Everything after that, child of Illmatic. So he has Illmatic. He drops. Oh shit!
It was written. Illmatic. It was written.
Nostradamus.
Nice.
I am. And it's like these aren't terrible albums. They're just not as good as Illmatic. And so I feel like he was a victim of his own success in a way. And then in that he was trying to switch up, and in that shiny suit era, and so he fell off a little bit, but then he came back strong with Stillmatic.
He went back to his roots,
yeah. So it's like everything after that, and if you look at how Nas's trajectory is now, he evolved with the time. He realized, man, I was rapping over these old corny sounding beats. Let me go get a better producer. We ain't got with Hit Boy, and you seen what they done these last 3-4 projects.
Them two trilogies was
you know what I'm saying? So it's like sometimes you just, as a culture, you need the energy of the youth, because the youth is always going to be tapped into what's relevant when it's music, whether it's manga, whether it's anime. And it's like, so we're at a point now where people want Black content, right? So it's like, well, how do we get it to them? Now we just got to find a way to make sure we get it in their faces, because to do that, what we got to do to do that. You know what I'm saying? So we got to get them to a place where they can, and appreciate it. Because if we don't get it to them, and we're not doing a good enough job, and we're not satisfied.
That market, that space. But to the point which you mentioned, I don't know if you saw, and this is to tie into with Nas. I don't know if you saw he started the Paid in Full program, where they honor hip hop legends who financially weren't doing so great. They honor Rakim and Scarface, so they getting paid for life. They got healthcare, all of that. To me, that's gonna be our, instead of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. We're gonna have our own. And I think in regards to what we're talking about with the Black manga and Black nerddom, at some point we're going to need to say, hey, okay, we're gonna rock with you because you're doing a thing for us specifically. Like it's on us to get those eyes out to the advertisement and eyes on things. But it's also on people to say, if you want something, you have to look for it. Like there are things that I would have never known about, but I was curious. I saw a little something, and I was like, hey, I wonder if they have this for Black people or whatever the case is. If you want it,
always the question, like you find some dope shit and you be like, hey man, I wonder if they got Black version of this.
Black version, but that's the thing though. If you were really looking for this, then I'm not browbeating anybody, but if you're really looking for this, you gotta look. Some things you have to look for. Some things you're gonna have to look for. It's just like you said, I don't like hip hop because it's too violent, whatever. And then it's like, I go listen to Lupe, or I go listen to J. Cole, or I go find Clear Soul Forces or whatever.
Let's talk about Odyssey. Let's talk about some of these Killer Mike. Let's talk about like some of these artists that have been out doing like super dope conscious music for a long time and ain't getting no shine. It's like it's like either you want the flash or you want substance. You know what I'm saying? You want your veggies, you gotta eat your veggies. We got it. So I don't know, man. I think in the creator space, I think we just have to find a better way as independent creators to connect with our audience and get them the quality stuff that we're doing. Because what's happening is I feel like there's a lot of people, what it is a lot of people can't both wear the creator brain and the business brain. You know what I'm saying? And so you might have a dope product, but you don't know how to market it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or you know how to market it, but your product kind of weak. You know what I mean? So then that leads a lot of people to go try to start buying up IP and getting other people's IP and trying to, and that whole thing. And IP is intellectual property for anybody who don't know.
For those who don't know, right?
Some people don't know. But it's like we have to find a way to marry that. And what happens is I tend to see, because I know there's been a couple attempts in the Black creator spaces to come together to make something dope, right? And it's like what tends to happen is we start beating our head, arguing, fighting over what comes out first, how do we dictate where the money goes, who's controls it, and it's like you can't until you can take the ego out of it, come up with a plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna we're not gonna be able to move as a unit. But really, what needs to happen is we need to unionize in a way, and we need to step in lockstep. You know what I'm saying? Or agree to support each other 100% without expecting any return. And I mean, I don't know if we're in a place where those things will happen yet. And that's kind of more what I worry about when I think about a lot of this stuff.
I feel like I agree with you, and I feel like if we wanted to do something either collectively or as one organization or as a collective of organizations united with each other, I feel like Image and Milestone kind of did those things. The only difference is that Image, they, people instead like, yo, I'm just going to sell my stuff to you. I don't want to do this anymore. And blah, blah, blah. With Milestone, from what I was told, it was a lot of not only just the toys, the action figures and that marketing. And I don't really think that should have been a problem, but there was a lot of head buttoning like, yo, nah, I'm this. And you got all these Black dudes who come from neighborhoods and places that, you don't want anybody to take you for a joke. And so when you start feeling like that, you got to be like, hey, listen, nah, bro, like, hold up. You not doing that to me, or I'm not feeling the way you're acting. And so I think at some point we've had a lot of attempts, and I think like you said, we have to take that. One, we got to take the idea that we're trying to get over on each other out of the equation. And when I say we got to take the idea that we believe that other Black people are trying to get over on us, or we got to take the idea or take the people out who are trying to get over on us. Who are Black. We need to,
and that's when the paperwork
get out.
That's when you got to get the paperwork right. If everything is defined on paper, you ain't got to worry about how things operate. And so we have to take the time to do that due diligence. We can't just be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this because you're Black and I'm Black, and we're gonna make this Black thing, and it's gonna be amazing, and Black people are gonna love it. And I wish it was that easy.
That sounds great. Yeah.
In theory it sounds great, but it's not always that easy. So it's one of those things, man. So wrapping this whole thing up, we don't feel like Japan owes Black Americans or Black fans any representation, only accurate representation. We feel that Black fans could go a little harder for Black-owned IP. They could go a little harder looking for it. They can go a little harder supporting it. But the ones that do, and that's the thing, the ones that do, they do. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we don't want to confuse it and make it seem like, oh, we don't think Black people support Black people, because that's not true. But there's some out there that don't take that second look, or they might not take the third look. You know what I'm saying? So it's like some people, but we have plenty out there to do. And so we want to appreciate them and show them love and show these other love. So to close things out, what are some of the best represented anime characters that you can think of? Just we usually do a top 5. We're not gonna do a top 5. We're just gonna throw a couple out there, talk about them if we remember them, etc.
Like I mentioned earlier, Muhammad Abdul from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Again, he wasn't a caricature. He didn't funny looking. He wasn't acting like some kind of weird African stereotype or anything like that. He was a level-headed man who was honest and straight to the point. I think I would say him. Mistalin from Knights is a manga. It was that manga was all about differences and discrimination and stuff. So he wasn't that. It was just they didn't know what he was. He was Black, so they treated him in that manner, in that way. This is a character who his design wise, excuse me, wasn't the best originally, but as a character, I think he was good. As he grew, Choco Love McDaniel from Shaman King, especially, his story explored.
People don't talk about Shaman King enough.
No, they don't. Choco Love's story explored the trauma that trauma built.
Yeah.
So creating cycles of trauma and trying to stop that and atoning for it, as opposed to, you know, being like,
is a hella relevant, hella relevant storyline for a lot of Black people in general, right?
Yes.
We got trauma on trauma from generations ago that we ain't sorted out yet. You
genetic trauma, genetic trauma. So
So yeah.
What about you? What about you?
I think, you know, for me, I always got to go back to my favorite anime, which is Black Lagoon. Dutch, probably to me, Dutch is the most. Like when I see Dutch, I see one of my uncles, man. Like he's just super cool, super smart. I mean, he kind of borderline with some of his morals, you know what I mean? But it's like, I mean, but for what he does and how he functions and how he's drawn and how he's perfect representation to me. You know what I mean? Would I've loved him to be more active in the main story and have a whole side quest with him? Sure, why not? But that's not what we got. I love Dutch. Obviously, you know, Ogun, you know what I mean? From Ogun Montgomery, Fire my Force. Man from Fire Force. He didn't have a huge storyline, but I loved how he looked. I loved how they drew him. I loved his personality. I loved his powers. You know what I mean?
He also one thing about him, he also wasn't the dumb one.
Correct.
He was the dude who was like, yo, like we got to think about what we're doing before we do it. Like y'all gotta. He was the thinking. He was the dude who thought like, yo, like hold on, we got to figure this out. Like, you know, we got to plan this. We can't just be wilding.
Yeah. Another one jumps out, probably Afro Samurai. Obvious reason, it was just dope. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then, you know, here's the one I always question. One of my favorite characters, which is Mirko from My Hero. Is she Black? Is she not Black? To me, I'm pretty sure she is Black, or she's dark skinned, or something like that. You know, but I've always liked her character. She's strong, tough, brave. You know, tenacious. You know what I'm saying? She reminds me a lot of my girl from Black Clover. Personality wise, the older sister, the Fire sister.
The Fire sister. Yeah, she's dope. Yeah. Like I'm ready to. She ready to scrap. She the first one. She the first one in. Like, yo, we fighting. Let's fight. Like, let's go.
So, but I do have some other things. You know, look straight up. Mr. Popo again, not Black.
He's not Black. He's not black
at all. Piccolo, not Black.
Sorry,
not Black.
Sorry, I know a lot of people are hurt by that, but he's not Black.
Going back all the way even to Doug on Saturday morning cartoon, Skeeter.
It's not black.
He's close
he's
though.
Green.
He's close.
He's probably the closest you're gonna get, but he's not Black.
Not
Sorry.
Black. So it's like we need to stop. But you know, that says a lot too about us as consumers and fans, that we had to gravitate to these non-white characters that you know, they might have been voiced by a Black character or they might have acted a little Black, but we had to gravitate to them because there was no true representation. We're gonna talk about representation in American comics and American media in another episode, but it's like I just can't. Like, we got to get out of that space where we're looking for the same things. I'm loving this wave of Black sci-fi and fantasy characters that's what we're in now. Like, we're getting a lot of new IP with a lot of, but it's like then you get into the conversation about race swapping and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation that we can have.
And it's hit and miss. You know what I mean? So man, look. Straight up, I appreciate you joining me tonight. As always, we on here every week. I appreciate everybody that popped in and popped out. We'll start doing these live shows every couple of weeks just to kind of show you guys some love. We appreciate you. This has been another episode of Concept Moon Weekly. Stay tuned. Tune in for Rashawn's review. What was the review this week was on
The Outsiders. The New Outsiders, which I really recommend. It's a book. If you like Warren Ellis's Planetary, you would like this, and it stars a Black character, Luke Fox, the son of Lucius Fox, with all his money and all his intellect, and so he's really doing them.
Then this week also coming, we'll have our story spotlight, Tales from the Moon, talking about the new project that's coming. That's going to be kind of merging all of our heroes into one linear anthology and storyline. So be on the lookout for that stuff coming later this week. As always, stay illuminated, and remember, within the moon, everything is illuminated.
Everything.
Everything. So we're going to sign off, man. Y'all have a good night.